Before we get back to the show, let me tell you about Bart's Pizza. Bart Basilico reinvented his father's pizzeria business by putting it on wheels. I'm talking a pizza food truck, baby. Bart and his wife Lauren travel all around Metro Detroit, cooking up homemade pies made fresh to order in their 4-layered pizza oven on wheels. You can find them on their website at eatbartspizza.com and Facebook and Instagram as well at Bart's Pizza. His last name is literally Basil, so you know he knows what he's doing. Make sure to grab a cannoli as well while you're there. Bart's Pizza, it's too good.
Are you looking for the ultimate sports experience? Well, look no further. My name is Jake Masucci, and I host a podcast called Jake's Takes. I am currently a sophomore at Oakland University and am a student manager with the men's basketball program. I started this sports podcast about 6 months ago, and I fell in love. I've been covering NFL, college football, and NBA, and going super in-depth with it. I bring on a lot of guests to talk about each sport that they're passionate about. I've even covered some hockey, some baseball. We even dove into some Marvel comics, which was super fun. So this podcast covers a lot, and I've really been enjoying myself. We come out Mondays every week, and we'll even sprinkle in some weekdays. We'll be on Wednesdays sometimes. We'll be on Thursdays sometimes. We'll be on Friday. So sprinkling in every once in a while. The podcast is available on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. And we also have a great YouTube going up. So subscribe to the Spotify, subscribe to YouTube, do whatever you got to do to support the channel. And I really appreciate it. And I'll hopefully see you guys on the next episode of Jake's Takes, but enjoy listening to Giovanni. Peace.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the GioMoShow, right here on 88.3 FM WXOU, Auburn Hills, Michigan, Oakland University, and all your wonderful station identification features. I'm your host of the GioMoShow, Giovanni Mosheri, and the GioMoShow is your home for all Oakland sports and beyond, right here on 88.3 FM. And if you're not here with me right now on 88.3 FM WXOU, or on the TuneIn app, or live on YouTube via the GioMoShow's YouTube channel, which you can go to, subscribe to at the GioMoShow. If you're not with me anywhere right now, then don't you worry, because we got it all for you on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, for you at any time. Be sure to go and like and subscribe, 5-star the podcast wherever you go and support your podcast. In addition to that, you can go down into the description of all of podcast recordings and of the live stream right now. Subscribe to WXOU Sports on YouTube, where we have all of our 2023-2024 live broadcasts up on YouTube. We got interviews, and we got highlights, and we got everything you need from your favorite college radio station, so be sure to go and subscribe to that channel as well. It's where you can find the GioMoShow interviews, of which the latest one, a couple of weeks ago, I spoke with John Lowinger of Oakland Baseball, and talked about him and his career. He came from Arizona all the way here to now a little bit prettier weathered Michigan. We get to talk about him and his career, their mindset going into, at the time, the last week of the regular season and then into the tournament. And for John Lowinger specifically, he had a fantastic individual tournament run. So be sure to go there and watch the interview, listen to the podcast version of it as well. John Lowinger is an absolute pleasure to talk to and work with, so I appreciate him coming onto the show that time ago. And finally, you can find WXOU on social media, all of which detailed in the description, as well as mine as well. And if you want to get connected with the GioMoShow, I suggest you go to the Instagram page dedicated to the show at the GioMoShow and use the hashtag the GioMoShow on Instagram or on Twitter to get connected with me and the show as a whole. So for our menu today, what do we have going on for this week of the GioMoShow? What's been going on in this past week in Oakland sports and beyond? Well, it starts with an Oakland unfortunate early exit in the Horizon League tournament falling to Youngstown State and Purdue-Fort Wayne. We'll be talking all about that in a little bit of a retrospective of their 2 tournament games as well as a little bit of the season, but I don't want to give too much of that away to spoil the season reviews we'll be doing this summer. But in addition to that, the USPBL has completed their Week 2 of play in which the Hoppers got a little bit of the spotlight, got the newsworthy plays in their doubleheader against the Unicorns. We'll be talking all about my Hoppers as well as they stay froggy near first place in the league. And then finally, if time permits, we'll be talking about a little bit of a preview of a story I wrote. It's a story that will be later coming out this summer on the Horizon Roundtable. I wrote a story dedicated to the history and now the future of the OU Credit Union Arena. I did a deep dive as to its history and its construction. We'll be talking about that at the end of the show as kind of a little teaser to the story as it comes out later this summer, and we'll be doing a podcast on the Horizon Roundtable accompanying that story as well. So we'll be talking a little bit about that at the end of the show as well. So, without further ado, let's get to Oakland baseball. Unfortunately, they suffered a similar fate to the Oakland softball team that had high hopes going into the Horizon League tournament and ended up coming home early to post their pictures of the season, their year 2, year 3, year 4 complete Instagram posts of all of their favorite pictures of the season. It's always a shame when you get to see those just a little bit earlier than you would want. All the players kind of en masse started posting their retrospective social media posts, but unfortunately, baseball met a similar fate at the hands of Youngstown State and Purdue-Fort Wayne in the Horizon League tournament hosted in Wright State in Dayton, Ohio. So, to set the stage, Oakland was the 3rd seed coming into this tournament, whereas Northern Kentucky took the 2nd seed, and Wright State, of course, taking the 1st seed going into the tournament. Oakland had a chance at it throughout the season, but just those were some good teams up at the top. So that set them up with a first-round match against a 6th seed, the bottom seed, Youngstown State Penguins. During the regular season, the Youngstown State Penguins, despite their, I believe, 9 Horizon League wins going into the tournament, either way, they were last place in 6th place. But despite that, they gave Oakland a little bit of problems throughout the regular season. Oakland split the season series with them after they won the first series here in Rochester, but then lost it as they traveled to Youngstown, Ohio. Yeah, that's right. 9-21 was the Penguins' conference record going into the tournament. But yeah, despite that, it was a tricky team to play against. But when Oakland won those 3 games, they were in the sense of, or in the area of 14-1 in 7 innings, 13-3 in 7 innings, and wins such as that. So if Oakland was going to be able to play the baseball they wanted, then would it have been no problem for the Youngstown State Penguins as Oakland would look to have advanced to face Northern Kentucky. Unfortunately, that did not become the case, and we'll go through the details of the game right now. So it started off with Youngstown State gaining a 2-0 lead after an RBI triple was followed up by an RBI single to get Youngstown State the 2-0 advantage after the first inning. Going into the second inning, teams would split, or rather they would exchange 1 run each. Youngstown State getting one at the top, and then Oakland in the bottom. So that would end up getting us to a 3-1 score by the second inning. The Oakland run was scored by an RBI single from John Lowinger, one of his many throughout the 2 games in the Horizon League tournament. So it sets us up with a 3-1 game Penguins lead after the second inning. And then in the third inning, teams would exchange runs again, but this time 2 apiece. Youngstown State, they would get a 2-run homer to make the game then 5-1, but then Oakland would match those 2 runs with a Brandon Heidel and John Lowinger hitting both RBI singles to make it 5-3 after the first 3 innings. But Youngstown State would continue to pour it on by scoring 1 run in the 5th inning and then another 3 in the 6th inning to extend their lead up to 6, going up 9-3 going into the 7th inning. But Oakland did find some offensive life, scoring 5 runs in the bottom of the 7th inning. Started off by a John Lowinger RBI single again, and then Carter Hayne would single into right field, getting resulting in 3 runs for Oakland off of a fielding error. So that would get Oakland back into the game. On top of that, they would have a sacrifice fly by Brandon Knight to cut the deficit to just 1, as the game was 9-8. Penguins lead as they ventured into the 8th inning. Oakland would then continue their offensive output, gaining the lead themselves in the 8th inning as Gavin Arsenault would hit a 2 RBI single to give Oakland their first lead of the game, 10-9 going into the 9th. But unfortunately, despite the momentum going towards Oakland, the Youngstown State Penguins found the home plate 4 times in the top of the 9th to go up 13-10, giving Oakland that final score, 13-10, in a heartbreaking loss in the opening rounds of the Horizon League tournament, sending Oakland to the consolation bracket. Star players for this game, John Lowinger went 4 of 5 at bat with 2 runs and 3 RBIs batted in, or runs batted in is what I just said, but either way, 3 RBIs for John Lowinger. Carter Hayne went 2 for 4 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. Ian Cleary, 2 of 5 as a designated hitter with 2 runs scored. And Lucas Day went 2 for 4 at bat as well. So that sent Oakland down into the consolation bracket where they matched up against the 5th seed Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons. During the regular season, Oakland went 4-2 against the Mastodons, winning both 3-game series. So they've had experience and success against the Mastodons, but unfortunately they would not find it here in the consolation match of the tournament. Purdue Fort Wayne would start off getting the first lead of the game, a 1-0 lead after an RBI triple would send a runner home for the Dons. But then Oakland would follow it up in the bottom of the first inning, getting the lead back with 2 runs scored off the single bat of Brandon Nye, getting a 2-run homer to give Oakland the 2-1 lead after the first inning. And then that's when the Mastodons came in rolling. They got 7 runs in the second inning, in the top of the second inning. They would get a 3-run home run themselves, a 2 RBI double, and then a 2 RBI single would all add up into 7 runs in the second inning, getting the Dons a 9-2 advantage. Oakland would later get back on the board by scoring a run in the 4th inning, with Carter Hayne bringing home Brendan Heidel on a double play. And then Purdue Fort Wayne got another 2 runs in the 5th inning to increase their lead to 11-3, or at least get it back to 11-3. Oakland would then try to cut into the deficit with a 2 RBI double by Brandon Heidel, and then an RBI single from John Lowinger to make it 11-6 going into the 6th inning. But Purdue Fort Wayne would score a single run in the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th to go up 14-6. And with the last gasping breath, Oakland got 2 more runs in the bottom of the 9th. Ben Clark and Ian Cleary both getting RBI doubles to give us the unfortunate final score of 14-8 in the elimination game. Purdue Fort Wayne advances, and Oakland goes home early. An unfortunate ending to the Horizon League tournament. Some highlight players of the game against the Dons. Brandon Nye, 2 of 2 at bat, including that home run to get Oakland the early lead in the first inning. He would go 1 of 2 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. Ian Cleary would go 2 of 4 with a run and an RBI. And then Brandon Heidel, 2 of 5, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. And adding it all up, in total, your highlight players for the 2 games in the tournament, Ian Cleary in total went 4 of 9, 44% from the plate, 3 runs and an RBI, also forcing 2 walks. Brandon Heidel, 4 of 10, with 3 runs and 3 RBIs. And then John Lowinger having the best performance of the Golden Grizzlies at bat, 6 of 9 with 2 runs and 4 RBIs for the Golden Grizzlies. And again, we got an interview with John Lowinger on WXOU Sports' YouTube channel. I got to chat with him leading into the final weekend of the Horizon League regular season. So go watch that after this show here. Get to know Mr. John Lowinger, get to know what he's all about and about how he got to the Golden Grizzlies. So as one final note for the now end of the season for the Golden Grizzlies, Brandon Heidel became the all-time leader in games played for the Golden Grizzlies, and here's 4 years at Rochester, 208 games played, a new record for the Golden Grizzlies. And also in a note for Brandon Heidel, go check out his Through the Eyes story via Golden Grizzlies. I got to work on that story with him. I got to interview him to get to know his story about him coming from California, what it means to him, the loyalty and the pride that he has in the Golden Grizzlies. He has a fantastic story Through the Eyes. So I would definitely go and check that out. I was working via FanWord, the company that creates those stories, to tell Brandon Heidel's story. It's a fantastic one, and I suggest you all go give that one a read. It's titled Grizzly for Life. So it is sad to already see our Golden Grizzlies baseball team come to an end of the season. It's been a lot of fun covering baseball, both here on the JoMo Show as well as some of our live WXOU broadcasts, me doing the play-by-play, us getting to interview some of the players after each game. We have Brandon Decker, who, like we mentioned last week, pitcher of the year for the Golden Grizzlies. We got to talk to him after a couple of games as well. Brandon Nye, we got an interview with him as well. And they're all of which have been great interviews. Coach Banfield's been great to work with, and just everyone from the baseball team has made us covering them that much more fun. So it's a shame to see the end of the season. And congratulations to the Golden Grizzlies for a great regular season. 31 wins, near the top of school history for wins in a regular season. We'll be having more baseball coverage coming later this summer via a season review is what we'll be continuing to do now that all active Oakland sports have wrapped up for the summer. We'll be taking a look back at each season for the Golden Grizzlies, all the way back to the soccer in the fall as well as volleyball, taking our way through basketball. We'll be talking about swim and dive, track and field, cross country, tennis, and golf. We'll be talking about every team for the Golden Grizzlies throughout this summer until we get to more live action coming August for when soccer boots up, as well as I think cross country starts at the same time and volleyball as well for all the fall sports. So be sure to subscribe to The JoMo Show right here on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, social media. Use the hashtag The JoMo Show to keep up to date with all things throughout the show here. We'll be covering a little bit more of sports as well as the season reviews, more interviews, more in the Beyond section as we take our way through the season of the USPBL as well. So there's a whole lot going on for The JoMo Show this summer, so be sure to subscribe and follow along so that you don't miss a beat of Oakland, or WXOU's home for Oakland sports. And with that, that'll wrap up our Oakland baseball segment, our final Oakland baseball segment of the season. And before we get going, I got to tell you about Friday Night Grooves, now temporarily Thursday nights on WXOU, hosted by DJ RBJ since 2011. Friday Night Grooves on Thursdays is your home for some of the best soul, the best jazz, electronic, indie, and alternative music that we have here at the station. RBJ also has interviews with some of the artists that he features, as well as having one of the best radio voices in the game. I almost wish he plays less music so I could hear his voice more. You can go to www.fridaynightgroove.com for more information on the show, as well as follow at Trill Gunderson. That's at TRIL Gunderson on Instagram for all the latest news on the show. Friday Night Grooves, now Thursday nights for the summer, right here on WXOU. And we will be getting back here after this break with your weekly update of the USPBL and how the Hoppers walked it off in their doubleheader against the Utica Unicorns. We'll be right back here on The JoMo Show. Make sure your leftovers are as safe and sound as they are delicious. Put them in shallow containers and get them into the refrigerator as soon as possible. Spoiled leftovers can make you very sick or even worse. 1 in 6 Americans will get sick from food poisoning this year, and roughly 3,000 will unfortunately die. But you can keep you and your family safe by chilling food promptly and properly. Learn more about this and other important information. Check your steps at foodsafety.gov. That's foodsafety.gov. A public service announcement brought to you by the USDA, HHS, and the Ad Council. And in addition to that, does your family have a plan in the case of an emergency? Emergencies are almost always unexpected, so many people are caught unprepared when they happen. Don't let this happen to you. Take the time to talk to your family about creating an emergency plan. Talk about things like where to meet, who would pick up the kids, and what supplies you should have. Go to ready.gov for more information on getting prepared for any emergency. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Ad Council. Welcome back here to the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland sports and beyond on 88.3 FM. And we will now venture into the beyond portion of our show, that being the USPBL, home of the Eastside Diamond Hoppers, my frogs, baby. And we'll be talking about them as they played their second week of the USPBL season. We'll be covering them all season long from the action at Jimmy John's Field. So for those who are unfamiliar and are just getting into the USPBL stands for the United Shore Professional Baseball League. It's where 4 teams, independent minor league baseball teams, play each other throughout the entire summer in Jimmy John's Field, right in the heart of Utica, Michigan. Home of the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers, the Westside Woolly Mammoths, the Utica Unicorns, and my Eastside Diamond Hoppers. So we'll be covering them all season long as the GioMoShow is your home for the Hoppers action. We got audio from this past week and the final calls of each game from Tom Cavanaugh, and Alex Johnson, who have been on the call all weekend long. We'll be hearing from them, their final calls of each game as we go through them in detail, as well as update you on the players of the week and the current standings in the USPBL. So let's get started with the first game of this weekend, of which there were 3. It was the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers versus the Westside Woolly Mammoths on Friday at 7 o'clock. The scoring began in the second inning with a single-shot home run by Beavers' Christian Ortega to give the Beavers a 1-0 lead. But the Mammoths would later tie the game in the fourth inning with a run of their own. The reigning batter of the week, Anthony Sharkis, hit a triple to send him to third base and was later batted home with an RBI from Dre Williams-Nelson. We'll be hearing more about him after the whole segment. The Mammoths would then find home plate again in the fifth inning to take the lead as Anthony Sharkis again with a 2 RBI double, sending home both Colby Seltzer and Nick Pastor, giving the Mammoths the 3-1 lead. 3-1 lead going into the sixth inning. But the Beavers were not done yet. They got one more run in the eighth inning with Brandon Perez hitting an RBI double to send home Ben Wilcoxon, making the game then 3-2 with the Mammoths still leading by 1. But the Mammoths would then match that in their half of the eighth inning as Anthony Garbakic would hit an RBI double to send home Dre Williams-Nelson, making the game 4-2. And then the Beavers could not get another run in the top of the ninth, thus sealing the game for the Mammoths as they go home victorious 4-2 over the Beavers. The Mammoths pitching staff would total 10 strikeouts, allowing only 2 runs and 5 hits between Michael Esposito and Trey Jones on the mound for the Westside Woolly Mammoths. We'll now go to the final call of that match, of that game between the Mammoths and the Beavers. Take it away, Tom and Alex.
The 0-1. Swing and a fly ball right field. Florentino sizes it up, and the Westside Woolly Mammoths take it and come from behind fashion. A 4-2 final as Trey Jones, 5 spectacular innings in relief. And the Mammoths get back in the winning ways with the 4-2 victory.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You do a great job on the broadcast. We'll be hearing from them after these next couple of games as well. So the Mammoths take the 4-2 win and give themselves a great case for batter of the week. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We'll get to that in a minute. But we have the Eastside Diamond Hoppers in a doubleheader against the Utica Unicorns this past Saturday. Saturday is always home for doubleheaders at the USPBL, and my Frogs got the spectacular spotlight game and moment of the weekend. And we'll detail that game right now. And this game was a bit of a strange one. A total of 9 runs scored between both teams, but only 3 hits. Only 4 hits between the two teams to get such runs. A lot of unearned runs. In total, there were 6 between both teams in this game. So let's go through the details here. I'll tell you through to get you through the story of the first game between the Unicorns and my Diamond Hoppers. The game would start with each team exchanging one run each. The Unicorns would score to get them the early lead as D Triplet would ground out for an RBI, sending home Seth Gurgley. But then the Hoppers would tie it up as Matt Gorig would reach on a fielder's choice to move the bases, which got Blake Valdiver across home plate to get the game tied at 1-1. Scoring would then continue in the third inning, but none of which came off of a hit. The Unicorns got another run as Tyler Shin would get home amidst a double play, getting them the 2-1 lead, but then the Hoppers would retie the game again and then later take the lead. As Bryant Shellshock Schellenbarger would reach on an error to move the bases and get both Noah Marcoux and Bailey Martin home to get the Hoppers in a leading column 3-2 after the third inning. The Unicorns would then tie the game at 3-3 in the fourth inning as Sam Buderus would score on a wild pitch. You're seeing all the runs that are not off of hits here. Very few clean RBIs here. It does make this a very strange game. And then in the sixth inning, which is the final inning of doubleheader games from the USPBL, they play only 6 innings in each game. So then in that final inning, in the sixth inning, the Unicorns would take the lead as Patrick Baggett would score on a passed ball. And I don't even know what a passed ball was, but it is a case where if the catcher can't hold on to the pitch and the umpire deems it that he should have, then the bases get automatically moved, and that sent Patrick Baggett home to get the Unicorns the 4-3 lead in the top of the final inning. But then, in the bottom of the final inning, in the sixth inning, the Hoppers would dig deep. Pinch hitter Luke Stevenson, with runners on the corners, hit an RBI single to bring home Zeb Roos, who got to third base by getting on first from a walk, stealing second, and then getting to third on a wild pitch. He would get home to tie the game at 4-4, and then Jake Shire, who made his way to third base, similarly, on a walk, and then to second base from the previous RBI, and then on third base from an error. He would be sent home after Bailey Martin would force a walk, sending Shire home and winning it for the Hoppers. It was a wild pitch moving the bases and getting Shire home. We'll have the gentleman up in the press box detail that one right here with a final call from the Hoppers walking it off in victory against the Utica Unicorns.
4 runs on 1 hit with 2 errors for Utica. 4 runs, 3 hits, 1 error for Eastside. Here's the full count. It's going to get away from Crump. Coming to the dish, Shire. He slides in. Safe. The Hoppers walk it off. 3-2 fastball. Wild pitch high over the head of Crump. And Shire head first slide in home. A 5-4 win for Eastside. And they take sole possession of first place in the USPBL.
Isn't that sweet? My Hoppers get it done in the final moments in a game that was full of errors and full of crazy things. It was a wild pitch going over the head of Crump, the catcher for the Unicorns. That sent Shire, who was waiting on third base, belly slide into home plate to get the 5-4 victory for the Eastside Diamond Hoppers. And as you heard, they take sole possession of first place with that win as both teams were tied at first place. So that sets up then the following game of that doubleheader between the Unicorns and my Hoppers. But sadly, the Hoppers' sole possession of first place only lasted a few hours as the game did not go our way. So in Game 2, no runs were scored until the Hoppers crossed home plate all the way in the 4th inning. And they did so twice. Todd Maddox would smack the ball for a 2 RBI double, bringing home Jake Shire and Ben Ferguson to give the Hoppers a 2-0 lead to start the game, or at least to start the scoring in the 4th inning. The Hoppers would continue to shut out the Unicorns all the way until the final inning. All the way, innings 1 through 5, no runs and not even a hit. The Hoppers Pitcher Pierce Banks was in the midst of a no-hitter going into that 6th inning. But then it all came crashing down as the Unicorns pour it on in their final chance at bat, starting with Sherman Martin getting the first hit of the game to move the bases with a double. And then the Unicorns proceeded to get a sac fly RBI by Gurgley to bring home Martin to make the game 2-1. Hoppers still with the lead. And then Mervelis scoring on a wild pitch to tie the game at 2 for the Unicorns. Weber, a 3 RBI double to bring home Triplett Smith and Crump to get the Unicorns the 5-2 lead, all still within the 6th inning, the top of the 6th inning, their final chance at bat. And then finally, Weber would be batted in off a Baggett single to make it 6-2 Unicorns lead, leaving the Hoppers one last chance to tie the game and to send it to sudden death at least. The Hoppers would try to get back into the game. They were able to score 2 runs as Schellenbarger was walked home and Ferguson was walked home as well, but it was not enough. The Unicorns would spoil a no-hitter to get a 6-4 victory from the depths of despair. Here's the final call from, once again, Alex Johnson and Tom Cavanaugh from the USPBL's YouTube broadcast of their game that they have every weekend on their YouTube channel. Let's go hear the call.
Bauman's 1-2 pitch on the way, swinging a line drive, caught by Triplett, and the Unicorns win. What a comeback from Utica. They score 6 in the top of the 6th inning and complete the comeback. After giving up 2, it was close. They loaded the bases, but they get it done.
Thank you very much, Tom Cavanaugh. Alex Johnson did have plenty to say after that. It's just for the sake of the play-by-play. We got a lot of Tom audio, but definitely go check out those broadcasts. Both Cavanaugh and Johnson do a great job on the call for the USPBL. So, yeah, almost a no-hitter, and then the Hoppers give up 6 runs in the top of the 6th inning, lose the game 6-4. To then reshare first place with the Unicorns. And that'll bring us to our standings. As of now, in the USPBL, both Utica and Eastside sit at 3-2 atop the league. The Westside Woolly Mammoths 2-2 at 500, but then the Birmingham Bloomfield Beavers 1-3 so far on the season. But from my eyes and from my ears, that means Eastside still is sharing first place. That means we're still top of the table if you use it in soccer terms. Number 1, I would say 1A to Utica's 1B, personally. But either way, those are the standings as of now after 2 weeks of play in the USPBL. As far as Players of the Week, this one was just recently announced this morning right before we went on air. But Pierce Banks, despite the sad ending of that last game in which Utica came back, he was still awarded Pitcher of the Week. And how could you not? After 5 innings, he had a .6 whip, a .183 WOBA, a 44.1 whiff rate, and it essentially all means he didn't give up much. And to look at the official statistics from that game, like I mentioned, he didn't let up a hit until that 6th inning. So either way, a fantastic job from Pierce Banks from the Diamond Hoppers being awarded Pitcher of the Week. But the Batter of the Week went towards the Mammoths once again, not by Anthony Sharkus, but by Dre Williams-Nelson, as he finished with a .714 batting average, a 57.1 hard hit rate, bringing in 4 RBIs and a .93 WOBA. Fantastic batting stats, of course. Dre Williams-Nelson, a great batting week for him for the Westside Woolly Mammoths, sitting at 3rd place so far as the regular season reigning champions. So what do we got coming up in the USPBL for this weekend? Well, Friday, May 31st at 7 o'clock, it's the Beavers versus the Diamond Hoppers on Italian-American Heritage Night. Unfortunately, I will not be in attendance for there, but listen, that's going to be a great night. That's the night that they opened it up with last season. Those tickets sell out quick, and you bet your butt, you bet your Gulu, if you will, There's going to be a whole lot of Italians in Utica to see my Hoppers win it for the culture, win it for all the Italians in the audience and in their away fan base. I will certainly be keeping up to date on Italian American Heritage Night. So that's Friday night's game. And then the Saturday doubleheader will be the Mammoths and the Unicorns. Saturday to start off the month of June. And then on Sunday, it'll be a rematch. It'll be the Hoppers versus the Beavers on Sunday, 1 o'clock at Jimmy John's Field. And it looks like the promotion is a princess brunch, as they like to get a lot of the... they get a lot of characters over at Jimmy John's Field. They got like Star Wars night, Harry Potter type of night. This one being the princess night, the princess brunch, or afternoon rather, in Jimmy John's Field. So it's been a great weekend of baseball at Jimmy John's Field. To wrap it up, the Mammoths win it 4-2 in come-from-behind fashion against the Beavers. In the doubleheader, the Hoppers win it in walk-off fashion against the Unicorns. But then the Unicorns win it by scoring 6 runs in the 6th inning after being shut out, hitless, to win it and even up the doubleheader against the Hoppers. And wrapping up the current standings, Utica and Eastside 3-2, sharing first place. Westside 2-2, and Birmingham Bloomfield 1-3. So join us next week for Week 3 summary right here on the GioMoShow, your home for the USPBL. And we're going to take another break here. And when we come back, we got a little bit of time left. We'll talk a little bit of preview of the historical deep dive of the life of the OU Credit Union Arena that I'm writing for the Horizon Roundtable. We'll talk all about that coming up next, right here on the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland sports and beyond. Welcome back here to the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland sports and beyond on WXOU. We just got done talking about the USPBL's Week 2 of play, in which we saw the Mammoths get a comeback win 4-2 over the Beavers, and the doubleheader being split between the Hoppers and the Unicorns. Hoppers walking off game 1, and Unicorns scoring 6 in the final inning to win it. And previously, we talked about the end of the season for the Oakland Golden Grizzlies baseball team, having an early exit in the Horizon League tournament, dropping their first 2 games in a double elimination, sending themselves home in we'll call it the first couple of games of play. An unfortunate ending, one that was also suffered by Oakland's softball team, which is strange similarities, and we'll go on. We'll move on after this in a little bit, but both baseball and softball pitchers of the year and losing the first 2 games in the tournament after being a good enough team to continue into it. It's a shame for Oakland sports. As a fan myself, as an alumni, almost alumni, I'm kind of in a gray area right now, but it's a shame to see, because they're great teams and they're great people and they work very hard and have had great seasons otherwise. But we talked all about that. So if you're joining me right now, you can find the podcast version of it later right here on the GioMoShow's YouTube channel, as well as the GioMoShow's podcast network. You could skip back if you're watching the YouTube live stream right now to hear some of that as well. But we'll be moving on we'll give a preview of the story I'm writing or have written, and will be uploaded later in July for the Horizon Roundtable. I took a deep dive into the history of the OU Credit Union Arena, home of the Golden Grizzlies, one of the bigger attractions as far as entertainment venues go in the Rochester Auburn Hills area. So I got a little curious as to its history and its lifespan so far. So I wrote all about it, and I'll give you guys a little the gist of the story right here on the GioMoShow before it's released. So I did a lot of interviews for that story. I talked to Kevin Beers, the PA announcer, who will soon be celebrating 20 years on the mic for the Golden Grizzlies, as he's one of the best in the game. He's one of the best in the country. He's got a heart as big as his voice, and he's always a pleasure to work with. I got to talk to him about obviously the fan experience and kind of what the crowds have looked like over the years, since Kevin has been there for more or less the majority of the life of the arena here at Oakland. Far before we were in the Horizon League, far before we had the blacktop. as but the floors were painted in a different way before the blacktop came, I believe, nearly 10 years ago. So I got to talk to him about it, about kind of the ups and downs of the audience. But until he told me, and listen, Kevin's an internal optimist, and he told me that in the interview, and you know, the student section in particular, it's always been wild. It's not consistently wild. It's not 10 out of 10 every year, but for the most part, they show up, and in addition to that, kind of the way the arena is built, very conducive for a powerful home court advantage. I'm not saying that in a like, oh, we got the best in the country. It's like, no, the building is structurally built for that. It's only about 4,000 seats. It's got low ceilings, and it's a very close approximation to the players on the court. When you scream, they hear it because you're not that far from them. And Kevin also was telling me that I asked him, because he's announced in bigger venues before. He announced even some of the March Madness being hosted at Little Caesars Arena in the Midwest region. I think the Midwest region like finals. I forget. It was like the second and third round of the tournament. He was a PA announcer at Little Caesars Arena because it was also sponsored by Oakland and Detroit Mercy. They had like their staffs come out and help with the event, as is customary for cities that host. But I asked him about like what's the biggest difference between announcing in the arena versus some of the bigger venues like that, and he described it in a very interesting way, where he said that in those bigger venues, yes, the number of people is greater, and yes, the attention it gets is greater, but it feels like a fishbowl, where you're watching from afar, but all you can really do is kind of tap on the glass. There's not much interaction that the fans can have with the game, and he told me that's the biggest difference when announcing in the arena, is that it's not a fishbowl. It is what he called true interactive experience, where, as mentioned before, you're sitting so close, and especially if you're front row, it's essentially courtside. And they do have courtside seats, of course, but it's truly an interactive experience. I know this firsthand. And if you guys follow me and know a little bit about me, yeah, I would call myself a super fan. I have been called a super fan. I like to agree with it, but I'm usually front row in the student section, and players notice. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, look at me, look at the impact I have on the game. I say this in reaching out to you, the audience, as well. You guys also have a great direct impact on the game when you're in the arena because you're so close. Players notice. Players know that feeling of hostility and how close it is, and the low ceilings reverberating the sound. It's a difficult place to play. In one of my other interviews for this story, I talked to longtime Cleveland State Viking men's basketball star Jason Woodridge, who recently will be transferring to Oakland this upcoming season for his 5th year. I thought, who better to talk to from an opponent's side about what it's like in the arena as the enemy, as the opponent. And he's had great games in the arena. He's shot 4 of 5 or 5 of 6 from 3 in the arena before. I asked him about that home crowd, and he says, yeah, it gets tough. The crowd, like, it hurries you up, and it's definitely something that when you're in the huddle, it's a point to make to quiet the crowd. It becomes a part of the strategy. And I also asked him about the reputation of it being a shooter's gym and how I learned that it was constructed purposely to be that way. He agrees with it. The darker colors, the nets coming from the ceiling, all of that is intentional for the arena to be a shooter's gym. The dark colors of the floor, even before the blacktop, it was all inside the arc, was like pitch black. Was like all inside the three-point line, so the shooters have a very easy time in the peripheral knowing if they're in or out to shoot a three. In the dark colors of the seats in the background and all that stuff, Jason Woodridge told me that the depth perception is a lot better in the arena, and it's one of his favorite gyms to play in, to shoot in, because of things like that. And that leads me now to the interview that I had with Coach Campy, because he was the acting athletic director at the time that Oakland was building the arena in 1997. And many people believe, no fault of their own, but many people believe that the decision to move to Division I and the building of the arena was the same decision. That is not true. And as I learned when I talked to Campy about it, him, like I mentioned, was the acting athletic director at the time. He was one of the two chairmen of the project, along with I forget the gentleman's name, but he was the vice president of student affairs in representing the rec center side of the construction. Because remember, the arena and the rec center are one building. The pool is the same. The pool is shared between the arena and the rec center, and many of the inner workings of the facility, it's one big building. That was part of some of the reason that it became difficult for a lot of people to find where the arena is, because they're expecting it to be a separate building than the rec center. And people ask me when they walk by, I'm like, no, that's the arena right there. So it was all one construction project, and I asked Campy all about it. What were some of the decisions you had to make? What were some of the concessions you had to make for it? What was that time like during the transition because at the time it was 2 years to transition from D2 to Division I, or I guess just jump any division. But it was a 2-year process, and it was also that amount of time to build the arena. And there were some lean times back then. And I guess, let me make one clarification before I was getting to it. The decision to move to Division I, turns out, was after the decision to build the arena. Yeah, forgive me for being scatterbrained here. Once again, once the article comes out and later the Horizon podcast comes out, it'll be a lot more clear. But apparently, the arena was commissioned to be built before Oakland decided to move from Division II to Division I, which means that all the budgeting and the planning was done with Division II in mind. And that's why, more or less, that's why the arena is much smaller than a lot of other D1 facilities, because it was supposed to be a D2 facility right from the get-go. And that was part of the sizing and the budget, like all of that. It was because Oakland was starting to outgrow the old Lepley Sports Center, and they needed a new home. And then shortly after, they decided to move to Division I. Campy even told me that he believes that, ironically, the plans to construct the arena helped Oakland get into a Division I conference. What was called at the time the Mid-Continent Conference, now known as the Summit League. Campy told me that that it was his feeling that building a new facility helped convince the league to let them in. So I found that very peculiar that the construction of a D2 facility helped Oakland get into a D1 conference. I thought that was awesome. That was a very cool detail that I didn't realize. But there were some very lean moments in that time, most of which I got to hear from my interview with longtime swim coach Pete Hovland. Because I thought, listen, Campy obviously was part of the construction and was there for the entire history of it, but Pete Hovland was also there. And I wanted to hear a little bit about the swim team side of things, as their facilities are, you can't swim just anywhere. You need a pool. Whereas other sports like volleyball and basketball, you can go to other facilities temporarily. What I mean is the facilities are much more impactful, I believe, for swimming than some of the other sports, just for the nature of you need the nice pool for it. So I asked Coach Hovland about what the transition was like, waiting for the arena to be built. And what he told me was shocking, And remember, this was back in 1997, and I believe the arena opened in 98. So forgive, I might be off a year or two, but during that 2-year transition period, there was a lot of temporary facilities that had to be put up for Oakland to continue doing their business during the construction. And that meant that offices were going to be down in South Foundation Hall, for those familiar with the buildings on campus. But some of their offices had to be moved either into other buildings or into trailers in the parking lot outside of the Oakland Center. And the basketball team, they had a bubble built in the parking lot made with some parts from the Detroit Pistons in the nearby Palace. They had nets and flooring from the Pistons covering with a bubble. That's how basketball was played for those 2 years. And there was a temporary pool built for Oakland swim and dive as well. Those conditions were rough. Coach Hovland told me there was no locker rooms. There was no shower. There was no bathroom. It was just the pool. Meaning that if you needed to use the bathroom during a swim practice in the dead of winter in Michigan, you had to go outside to a porta-john in your wet bathing suit and do your business. In the dead of winter, soaking wet. That's what you had to do. There was this temporary storage unit with like that sliding garage door that the men's and women's team had to go in, take turns, go in, change, open up the door that's to the outside, come out and let the women's team come in and change, open up the door, all that stuff. That's what they had to do for 2 years waiting for the arena. And then in regards to the offices, Hovland was telling me that they had his office as the men's coach as well. He wasn't the men's and women's coach at the time. He was just a men's coach. His office was right underneath the AC duct, the AC unit. So his office was like a freezer. He needed the ski jacket and the hat and gloves in his office. And the women's coach at the time had the same situation, but with the heating unit. So while Hovland is in his freezer of an office in full like skiing gear, the women's coach is in a t-shirt and shorts sweating it out. That's what they had to do when waiting for the arena. And even Campy was talking about some of their conditions, how their temporary locker rooms were like a 50-yard outdoor walk to the bubble. Again, dead of winter, where you're changing, you got to walk 50 yards in freezing cold and snow to get into a regular temperature bubble. But still, he said players would freeze on the way in. And that's really tough to deal with. So all these conditions waiting for the arena to be built, once it finally was made and was open to everybody, it was magical, in the words of Pete Hovland. During the construction, they would kind of go and visit, see the beams be constructed. You get the feeling of the building as it's being constructed. Hovland said your imagination starts running wild in hope and anticipation for this new facility. He said it lifts your spirits. If you're tired of the conditions, if the conditions are too tough, because they were. You're freezing in your office. He also said you're vacuuming cinder block dust every day. And who knows how much you're breathing of that for 2 years. He said seeing that arena being constructed made it all worth it. For the pool, once it opened, Hovland said that they built one of the best facilities, one of the nicest facilities in Michigan and in the Midwest. Once it finally opened, the arena had a similar feel. They used to, and I didn't notice either, shortly after the arena was open, they would host pickup basketball with all the students who also had to wait for that. And they had visits from Barry Sanders, who would go and shoot hoops in the arena. Barry Sanders, during his Lions career, the Hall of Fame running back, would go shoot hoops at the arena. The Barry Sanders that we have footage of, not in the arena, but has footage of being able to dunk at 5'8". He would go shoot hoops at the arena. And in addition to that, some of the coaches would join the intramural basketball league. And the year it opened, the coaches won it against the students. So once the arena was open, it was just a magical time for the university. So now, fast forward to now, the new naming deal to make it the OU Credit Union Arena, my final interview, and I didn't even get to feature it in the story, was with Steve Waterfield, the current athletic director of Oakland University. Asking him about not only, and we're running out of time here, unfortunately, but so I'll have to speed up the rest of the story here, but in addition to the new money coming in from the naming deal with the OU Credit Union, that is 10 years, $5 million, in addition to that and what opportunities that opens for the athletic department, they're opening now a new practice facility that will be set to open for strict practices this December and will be fully operational by the end of next June 25. I talked to Campy about a little bit of that as well, what they needed and what it provides for them. But talking to Waterfield, he told me that now the schedule is a lot more open in the arena as a venue. It doesn't have to be shared between games and practices of men's basketball, women's basketball, and volleyball. Now it'll just be volleyball that'll have their practices and their games there. Meanwhile, the basketball team will have all of their practices in the new facility and then just games in the arena. So that's two teams' seasons of practices now off the schedule of the arena. Now they have the opportunity to host entertainment events like concerts or conventions, or they have a lot more opportunity to make the arena, I say this in my words, to make the arena the new Palace of Auburn Hills. Because the old one's gone. Thanks, Tom Gorse. But now the arena has the opportunity to be the new center of entertainment for athletics and otherwise in the area. More people coming in. More people, experiencing the university. Even if it's not for a game, they get to come here and see what Oakland is all about. So there's a lot of new things going on. And in addition to the beautiful signage that they put out at the arena, I thought it was such a great touch to add that signage, to see somewhat of a visual separation between the rec center and the arena, and to make it more of a spotlight on campus. You see the sign. It's the arena. They're eventually going to have a digital one that'll have the game schedules constantly updated and other event schedules so that you know what's going on in that now labeled building. So I think the arena is in a new era that is going to pick up right where Oakland men's basketball left off in March Madness, and it's going to be a lot busier in the coming years. I'm stoked for it. I'm very excited for it, and I'm excited for this story to come out later at the around the end of July is when this story will be released, and when me and Horizon Roundtable's Bob McDonald will be recording our accompanying podcast. It'll go a lot more into detail, a lot more organized detail than the rambling I did for this edition of the GioMoShow, but either way, I'm looking forward to that, and looking forward to now the next week's edition of the GioMoShow. As we have reached 1 o'clock, we're out of here in just a moment here. For next week, look forward to week 3 of the USPBL as my Diamond Hot Bears will continue their ascent to first place. We'll also be looking back at what should we start with? Let's start with volleyball as our season review to start off the summer of Oakland sports in review. So we'll be going over volleyball's season, their trip to the Horizon League tournament. And in addition to that, we'll talk more about the NBA Finals. We'll actually get the basketball segment in this time. I didn't have time for it today. And we'll have all of that for you and more coming up next week here on the GioMoShow, your home for Oakland sports and beyond. 88.3 FM WXOU, Auburn Hills, Michigan, Oakland University. We will see you next week, everybody. Giovanni Mosheri, out.